Bring my colleague Joe Khalil in. He's at the White House for us today and joins us now from the North Lawn. So yes, first time, and you know, this was referred to as well, that we've seen the president on camera in about a week, right? And covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, certainly. I'm going to start with what I thought was the biggest news item there, which is what he talked about Venezuela. And he said that there was a U.S. strike on a drug-carrying boat, is what President Trump said. We have since gotten clarification from the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, who said that there was, in fact, a lethal American strike on a boat that the Secretary believes was carrying drugs coming out of Venezuela in the Caribbean. This is what Secretary Rubio said. President Trump said that he had gotten a briefing from the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, so it had quickly been escalated up. This is obviously really big deal, Connell. We've been talking about how the U.S. has been posturing naval ships in the Caribbean and around Venezuela with the purpose of going after drug cartels. And we've been told by the Pentagon there were 7 naval ships there that were ready to strike if need be. That has, in fact, now happened. So that was obviously a huge piece of news. And, you know, we'll also just talk about the importance of the Space Command headquarters going from now Colorado to Huntsville, Alabama. President Trump pointed out that originally when Space Force began back in 2020, there was this idea that Huntsville was going to be the place where it would be housed. And the Air Force did basically an assessment that approved Huntsville for doing that. It was temporarily in Colorado until President Biden came in and said, we're going to make that temporary location permanent. And it was basically designated for that Colorado until today. The announcement now that Space Force goes back now, Space Command headquarters, to Alabama, which is, again, a pretty significant deal. You shipped resources there. Huntsville certainly is known for having several other branches having their sort of space commands there as well, known as Rocket City, as President Trump said. So that's a big deal, too, economically and militarily for Alabama, that it now gets that headquarters.
You know, it was one strange moment, Joe. I don't know if you know much about it or can explain it. You know, for someone tuning in, what were they talking about there? There were someone, there'd been a video online, right, that supposedly showed someone throwing something out a window at the White House, and the president said it could be AI. What's the background on that? Do you know?
Yeah, this video started circulating over the weekend, and I've seen the video. I saw it on social media, as did, I think, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. The video went viral pretty quickly, and it does appear to show somebody from the south side of the White House on the 2nd floor with an open window just sort of dropping something out of it. Again, it has gone viral. A reporter there in the Oval Office asked President Trump about it, and he said he dismissed it as AI. He said that there is no way that that could be a real video because, as President Trump explained it, those windows are supposed to be heavily fortified and sealed and not supposed to be open at all. So he said, you know, this was very likely an AI video. If you see the video, I mean, I'm not, I guess, a foremost expert, but you can sort of sometimes tell what is AI and what is not. I'll just say, you know, I don't get paid enough to share my opinions, Connell, but it does look very real. It doesn't have the sort of hallmarks that you see for other AI videos. But the president says, as far as he knows, he believes it's an AI fake video.
Yeah, I saw it too. It was a strange video, and that was a strange moment in the Oval Office. All right, Joe, thank you.
15 minutes past the hour, and Venezuela is on high alert this morning as the U.S. military quickly builds up in the Caribbean. The South American country ordering more troops near the coast to tackle drug trafficking. That move coming after the U.S. hit suspected cartel members last week on a boat. With President Trump warning more military operations may be on the horizon. NewsNation's Tom Dempsey has the latest from the White House. Tom, we're now learning more about what kinds of forces the president is sending down to the Caribbean.
That's right, Marky. Good morning. NewsNation has learned that 10 F-35 stealth fighter jets will be sent to Puerto Rico later this week as part of this growing U.S. military presence in the region. But this comes as there's some big questions going around about what could lie ahead with Venezuela, especially after these comments from President Trump. Take a listen.
Are you considering attacking the cartels inside of Venezuela? You attack?
Well, you're going to find out. You're going to find out.
Now, this all comes after that U.S. military strike killed 11 people on board an alleged drug boat that left Venezuela last Tuesday. President Trump saying the boat carried members of the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua, and his team warned more military operations could happen. In addition to those F-35 fighter jets, though, NewsNation has also confirmed that at least 7 ships are being deployed in the region, as well as a nuclear-powered submarine and over 4,500 Marines near Venezuela. In response to all this, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro accused the United States of wanting a regime change through military force, but President Trump has denied that and accused Maduro of having ties to drug cartels and even ties to the Tren de Aragua gang. Marky?
Talk about American manpower and firepower there. How's Congress reacting to the strike and the increased military presence near Venezuela?
Yeah, there's been some pushback, actually, not only from Democrats, but at least one Republican as well. We're talking about Senator Rand Paul, who pushed back against recent comments from Vice President J.D. Vance, really praising that strike against that alleged drug boat near Venezuela. In a post to X, again, Senator Paul writing this, quote, "What a despicable and thoughtless sentiment it is to glorify killing someone without a trial." But Democratic Senator Mark Warner also voiced similar concerns.
There are still international laws of the sea about how the process of interdicting these kind of boats. There's supposed to be a firing of a warning shot. You're supposed to try to take it peacefully. My understanding, this boat, none of those procedures are followed.
And with this back and forth happening, Marky, we also know that tomorrow top senators will meet with a team from the White House for an intelligence briefing about this strike. Marky?
All right, we'll stay tuned to that. Tom Dempsey live at the White House. Thank you.
Tonight, we're learning new details of a new U.S. military strike on what President Trump is calling Venezuelan narco-terrorists in the international waters. The president posted this video to Truth Social this afternoon showing a boat suddenly consumed by a massive fireball. He said 3 people were on the vessel and they were killed while in the midst of transporting illegal drugs from Venezuela to the U.S. This military move comes 2 weeks after another strike on an alleged carrying drug boat in the Caribbean, and that killed 11 people. President Trump made his message to the cartels clear, saying, quote, "We are hunting you." NewsNation's Kelly Meyer is live at the White House tracking all of this. And Kelly, the president just addressed this moments ago in the Oval Office. Is he providing, because in both cases, people were asking for some sort of proof of what was on the board, who was on the boat. Did he provide any of that, or how did he address it?
And that's exactly what he was talking about there inside the Oval Office. You hit right there on it, Elizabeth. There has been really no evidence as to what was on board both of these vessels. And as you mentioned, this is nearly 2 weeks, the second time in nearly 2 weeks that the U.S. has targeted an alleged drug smuggling boat coming out of Venezuela, ratcheting up tensions with the country. Here's what the president had to say about proof.
We have proof. All you have to do is look at the cargo that was like it's spattered all over the ocean. Big bags of cocaine and fentanyl all over the place. And it was, plus we have recorded evidence that they were leaving.
So President Trump said they'll stop the cartels by land just as they are doing by sea. And we've seen the military presence really ratchet up in recent weeks in the Southern Caribbean to take on what the administration is calling its crackdown of drug cartels. Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro, is saying that this is aggression coming from the U.S. and communication between the two governments has been thrown away. And the president also isn't ruling out targeting the mainland of Venezuela as well. When asked about the likelihood of a U.S. strike, he said, quote, "We'll see what happens." Elizabeth.
He has offered everything. He's offered everything. You're right. You know why? Because he doesn't want to f around with the United States.
Strong words from President Donald Trump aimed at Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro amid escalating tensions between the United States and the South American country. The president's comments coming after the U.S. carried out deadly strikes in Caribbean waters against suspected drug traffickers this week, at least the 6 such attacks since early September. NewsNation correspondent Hannah Brandt joins us live from Washington. Hannah, we're now hearing harsh and serious accusations from Colombia's president over these strikes. What more can you tell us there?
Yeah, Alex, that's right. These strikes causing a lot of tension internationally, really. The U.S. military strikes on these boats allegedly carrying drugs, causing some major blowback from the president of Colombia, who is now saying one of the boats hit was not carrying drugs at all. And he's accusing the U.S. government of murder. Take a look at what he said just a short while ago, posting on X that the boat that the U.S. struck on September 16th was actually a fishing boat carrying a man not connected to the drug trade. The president writing, quote, U.S. government officials have committed a murder and violated our sovereignty and territorial waters. We await explanations from the U.S. government. The Trump administration has carried out at least 6 strikes on apparent drug vessels since September. This is video of the most recent strike. It happened earlier in the week, but President Trump shared the video just this morning. And for the first time during this strike, 2 people survived. The U.S. Navy did take them into custody. And today, President Trump announced in a post, quote, the 2 surviving terrorists are being returned to their countries of origin, Ecuador and Colombia, for detention and prosecution. Also adding, quote, under my watch, the United States of America will not tolerate narco-terrorists trafficking illegal drugs by land or by sea. Now, in total, these strikes have killed at least 28 people. You heard the concern from the president of Colombia, but he's not the only one asking questions and raising some serious questions. We've heard it from U.S. lawmakers and from the international community more broadly, who are saying these attacks may not be legal. President Trump, though, and his administration have repeatedly defended the operations, calling them part of a legitimate war on narco-terrorists and on Venezuelan drug networks. Here's what President Trump said about this most recent strike.
We attacked a submarine, and that was a drug-carrying submarine built specifically for the transportation of massive amounts of drugs. Just so you understand, this was not an innocent group of people.
And President Trump has also confirmed he's authorized the CIA to conduct covert operations inside of Venezuela, also saying he's weighing carrying out land operations on the country. This all coming amid recent efforts to build up the U.S. military presence in the Caribbean. Of course, this has escalated tensions not only between the U.S. and Colombia, but the U.S. and Venezuela, with Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro accusing the CIA of conspiring against him. Maduro has mobilized troops and civilian militia along the northern coast in response, Alex.
We have a look at all of President Trump's strikes so far on boats he says are smuggling drugs. The first was in September on the 2nd, and since then, the U.S. military has killed at least 61 people in 14 strikes. President Trump believes that the strikes are protecting Americans from illegal drugs. However, there are some lawmakers, mostly on the other side, raising concern about the legality of the measures. My next guest is living through the tragic effects of the fentanyl crisis. Ann Fundner lost her 15-year-old son, Weston, who died of an overdose after he accidentally took a fentanyl-laced pill 3 years ago. Since then, she has pushed for laws like the Halt All Lethal Trafficking of Fentanyl Act. Her mission is to educate others about the dangers of the drug. And Ann is with us now this morning. Ann, thank you so much. And I am beyond sorry for your loss of Weston. I appreciate you talking with us this morning. Let's start with Weston, your son. Tell me about him.
Weston was a beautiful child. He had a beautiful heart of gold, really a lot of fun, had a ton of friends, loved life. And he went to private school, Christian school. He played sports. He loved to surf, and he loved his friends and family and his dog. He was just a really sweet and very special kid.
How did he end up getting this dangerous and deadly pill in his possession?
So I always like to tell parents to talk to your kids about peer pressure. He was at a new school, and he had made friends with some new kids. And I think the pressures of conforming is worth its weight in gold to children. So he wanted to fit in, and in a moment of peer pressure, he made a decision.
What did he think, Ann, the pill was? Do you know?
Percocet. And his doctor, coincidentally, 2 weeks earlier, had offered him a Percocet for his hand. When he hurt his hand, we got x-rays and he offered Percocet, but he said, I really don't like to give it to kids. And I said, absolutely not. But he had heard it. And so I think he thought, okay, I know my mom's talked to me until, the cows come home, that you never ever try something, but everyone else is doing it. It seems safe. My doctor said it's safe. So why not? But it wasn't Percocet at all. It was blue pressed powder with pure fentanyl and nothing else. There was no Percocet in it whatsoever. It was a fake pill that looked real, pressed over by the cartels, brought over to America to kill our children on American soil.
Which brings me to the question of accountability. When you see these drug boats being blown up in the Atlantic Ocean, also in the Pacific now, how does that land with you, Anne, given your personal connection to all of this and the loss of Weston?
It's a little piece of justice. None of these boats are going to ever measure up to the amount of deaths that we've seen on American soil. 500,000 Americans have been killed. Half a million Americans have been killed on American soil since this crisis began. And, the amount of people that are being destroyed who are drug smuggling, by the way, they're not out fishing and they're not out taking, a little cruise on the water that day with lots of barrels of drugs on their boats. They are murderers and criminals, and they wouldn't think twice about killing anybody. So for me, this is justice, and I'd love to see it keep happening until this crisis is under control. And I know our president will absolutely see that through.
I know you are a fierce advocate now for other families in Weston's honor. Tell me about the HALT Act and why you push so hard for it.
Well, it criminalizes dealers who push this poison on our children. We needed that. It became a Schedule I drug. That was very important because it made it able to give a minimum jail time of 10 years. So it was a very important act. But on top of that, we have a president now who's sealed the borders, who's imposed tariffs, who's shut down the de minimis loophole, which inspects any packages under $800. A lot of drugs were coming in that way. And now we see decisive action happening with the cartels, and I think it's going to keep going. So HALT Act was just, a very important part of this whole entire fight to criminalize people.
You said something a moment ago, Anne, that struck me, and I've had the same conversation with my 3 kids, teenagers, about never taking anything from anyone that you don't know or trust. It didn't come from a doctor or a source that you understand what you're taking is what, in fact, you believe you're taking. I get a lot of, Mom, I know. I'm never going to do that response. And I know a lot of families do as well. What is your message in that moment, in those conversations?
Well, they do know, but when it comes down to that moment and the pressure is on and everybody's doing it, and maybe it's a crowd that you have been working hard to get involved in, or maybe you are new at a school and you want to be friends with these people, or maybe there's a girl you like or a guy that, is doing it too, and you just want to impress them. You don't want to be the stupid kid that's not doing the things that everybody else is doing. You're actually going to be the smart kid when you say, not my thing, or, my mom's going to pick me up, or I really don't think I should, I have allergies. Whatever the excuse that you need to come up with, use it. And by the way, you're going to help other kids that are in that circle that also don't want to do it, that may want to feel like they're fitting in. And they're going to, hear you say no, and you're going to give them an out. But what I tell parents, please don't just tell your kids this. Run scenarios, and they're going to think you're crazy, but run scenarios. Say, hey, I'm, so-and-so, and I'm offering you a drug. Let's go through this, and run the scenarios so that when they do come into these situations, and they will, they'll be fully prepared for it.
Yeah, wonderful advice. And I also appreciate coming up with an excuse and talk to your kid about what that excuse is and use it every time. Ann Fundner, I know it's through pain that you have found this purpose, but I thank you for sharing your message with us and so many.
Have you made up your mind on what you'd like to do as far as action?
I sort of have made up my mind, yeah. I mean, I can't tell you what it would be, but I sort of made up my mind. We made a lot of progress with Venezuela in terms of stopping drugs from pouring in. We have a Mexico problem. We have a Colombia problem.
Just moments ago, President Trump on Air Force One says he's made a decision on what to do about Venezuela. It comes just hours after U.S. Southern Command releases video of another drug smuggling boat that they blew up in the Caribbean. And U.S. Strategic Command released an ominous tweet saying delivering peace through strength with the carrier strike group In the Southern Command Area of Responsibility, an Air Force Global Strike B-52 Superfortress recently teamed with Navy FA-18EF Super Hornets for a joint long-range bomber demonstration, and they attached photos to it. There is enough American hardware off the coast of Venezuela to take over all of South America. We've been telling you all along that the purpose of this is not to stop drugs. There is some bigger mission here. And today we got our first concrete idea of what might be happening. The Wall Street Journal reports a classified Justice Department brief authorizing strikes on drug smuggling boats describes fentanyl as a potential chemical weapons threat. Chemical weapons threat. Look, fentanyl is a poison that's killed hundreds of thousands of Americans, but that's written in a very specific way, a justification for war. Not dissimilar to the justification that led to, say, the 9/11 war against Afghanistan. Terrorist threat, and certainly rings bells to what led to the invasion of Iraq. With us now, Congressman Adam Smith, ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee. It's good to see you, sir. It sounds like, just from what the president said, that we're not going to war with Venezuela. And if that means they have made major concessions, does that sort of not prove that massive show of force, who knows if Trump's going to do it or not, works?
Yeah, well, I've seen no evidence of any sort of major concessions by Venezuela, so I'd have to see that first. Maduro's not going anywhere, and nothing much has changed. So I don't follow that. I suppose if they made some type of concessions, sure, but that doesn't seem to be what's happening right now. And the fentanyl explanation is troubling because no fentanyl comes out of Venezuela or Colombia, for that matter. So as a justification for war in general, it's highly questionable that fentanyl meets the same definition of a weapon of mass destruction, and it's certainly not even remotely debatable that any fentanyl is coming out of that part of the world.
Okay, so do you think blowing up drug boats is a bad idea?
I think it's illegal, and I don't think it's going to help much in the drug war. Costs a lot of money, places us at risk, undermines us with our allies. Great Britain has now stopped sharing intelligence with us because they think that those actions are illegal. So we've lost a key partner. The drug trade tends to find a way. You blocked it here. Is it going to go across land now? Probably. As you and I have talked about before, drugs in America are as much a demand problem as a supply problem, which is not to say that we shouldn't try to stop them. But it is to say that basically deciding that drug smuggling comes with it the death penalty, and Donald Trump is the judge, jury, and executioner for that, is a huge expansion of presidential power that I think is dangerous without a clear policy.
There's a gulf, and I guess you could say a distance between the cup and the lip in what you're saying here, because there's a difference between drug trafficking in the United States and in international waters. Here's Secretary Rubio answering your question about whether it's legal or not. Take a listen.
I don't think that the European Union gets to determine what international law is. They certainly don't get to determine is how the United States defends its national security. The United States is under attack from organized criminal narco-terrorists in our hemisphere, and the president is responding in the defense of our country.
Is it in the best interest of Democrats to effectively be saying, no, you can't stop drugs from coming in with military force?
That's not what we're saying. You know that's not what we're saying. Well, sorry, the first, you can stop drugs from coming in, but you can't just use the military to blow up whatever you want to blow up. But this, again, it's expansion of presidential power. There's a whole bunch of different ways to combat drug smuggling that don't involve the U.S. military waging war on boats in the Caribbean. So, and I don't disagree with Marco Rubio saying that European Union doesn't get to decide what international law is, but nor does the United States of America. We have to, well, we're supposed to adhere to our own laws and to the international treaties that we've signed on to. So that's really the question, not what the European Union decides, though it does have the practical effect, where Great Britain is concerned, of damaging a crucial intelligence and defense partnership.
I guess the point would be whether that's their problem or our problem, especially in the Caribbean. But
it's both. But yeah.
This is what Pete Hegseth wrote. Led by the Joint Task Force Southern Spear and Southern Command, this mission defends our homeland, removes narco-terrorists from our hemisphere, secures our homeland for the drugs that are killing our people. The Western Hemisphere is America's neighborhood, and we will protect it. The narco-terrorist line, we had said, starting 3 years ago on this program, why don't we treat drug cartels like terrorist organizations. There's far more people killed in America by the drug cartels and by their product than terrorists have ever killed. The question is this. President Obama droned people all over the world, inside sovereign countries, and Democrats didn't say boo about it, yet Donald Trump is blowing up drug smuggling boats in international waters, and suddenly everyone's crying about how illegal it is.
A couple of flaws in that. First of all, a whole lot of Democrats said boo about all of that. Your memory needs to be jogged a little bit about the controversy surrounding those decisions. Second of all, I draw a distinction, as I think we all should, between the attacks on 9/11, which was an armed effort to basically kill Americans and the drug trade. You know, both are bad. One represents an armed conflict. The other one is in a different category. And if you expand the use of the military to protect us from the drug trade, again, I think that is a dramatic expansion of the use of the U.S. military. But if you want to move past the legality of this, what's the end game here? Do we really think blowing up a few dozen boats in international waters is going to significantly alter the presence of drugs in the U.S.? Again, remember, none of this touches fentanyl at all. This is all about cocaine, which is a problem too, don't get me wrong. But it doesn't touch what is the central problem. So you want to move past, you want to accept the legality, fine. What about the policy? What's the end game here? How long are we going to be doing this? And what does success look like? The administration hasn't told us either of those things yet.
Very true point, and one we actually made in War Notes, which brings us to our promo for War Notes. Congressman Adam Smith of Washington State, thank you, sir.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.